two arguments from Open Government. One on why citizen journalism has less incentive to be accountable and no capacity to be accountable. And secondly, why traditional media becomes worse because it has to compete with citizen journalism. But before that, some framing. What is this debate about? We do not think that this debate is about smart and informed voters or people who read the media. This is because they would fact check most times anyways. Therefore, most times, whatever media sources they read are most likely to be reputable and they care about them and they thoroughly search through them. This means that this debate is mostly about the average person who does not go to fact check social media, does not go to fact check the news sources that they consume, and therefore we talk about a field where the competition in journalism is not who writes the best article, but who gets the most clicks. Going to our first argument on why citizen journalism is less accountable because of an incentive to become popular. So why does citizen journalism have this incentive? We think this for three reasons. One, it is because it has to compete with lots and lots of other people who are also social media and potentially want to make a living also doing citizen journalism or having at least a blog or a big social media account that can potentially sell merch in the future. Secondly, we think that you're competing with people that do not have a name and you also do not have a name, at least a reputable one. Therefore, you have an incentive to make some reputation for your stories to get more clicks, more likes, and for your future stories to also do that. But thirdly, we think that a lot of people who do citizen journalism also want to virtue signal. This means that there are people who want to portray an ideal image of themselves, that they're able to be investigative, but also have morals and the ability to some particular leftist ideology or right-wing ideology they want to portray in the world. This means that they most times have an incentive to become as popular and to portray said ideology to the public. Why does traditional media have this way less? Two reasons. One, they have an established name. This means that they want to protect said name and they want to continue having trustworthy news sources. This means that they do not want to potentially have lower quality or at least maintain a higher quality article than a citizen journalist. But secondly, they also already have a pretty large audience that they have. This means that they have less of a necessity to at least spam articles and news sources to get more people to listen to them. Why then why do citizen journalists have less of an incentive to be kept accountable? No, thank you. Two reasons. One, they want to be the ones that come with a news story first. Notice that these journalists do not only compete with citizen journalists, but with the traditional media as well. This means they are more likely to skip fact-checking, to skip having multiple witness news stories, really to have the article as fast as possible. Secondly, they have bias. This means that they are more likely to believe the story even if it is not fact-checked in the first place. Therefore, they're more likely to believe evidence are more real than they are. This is what have ended up with people being able to convince us that maybe climate change is not real, or maybe that QAnon conspiracy theory might have some merit while it does not. All of this is because these citizen journalists have an incentive to maximize their bias and to be able to portray these articles as realistic. But even if they have an incentive to have accountability, while they don't have the capacity to be able to have accountability. Two reasons. One, they do not have the training that proper journalists in traditional media have. This means that they do not know what is particularly ethical. Should you be able to report the witness on a story based on evidence? Many people have been doxxed by citizen journalists in order for their articles to seem more trustworthy. We think that this is a harm by itself. But secondly, they do not have the experience. Even if they were trained, which they are not, they do not have the particular experience and the network that is inside the traditional media outlet, which fact-checks all of the things they're saying. This means that even if they wanted to do that, they do not have the network that can be able to fact-check all of these stories and make them be more accountable. Why accountability in media is the most important thing in this debate? Two reasons. One, fake news. The moment that you're able... I don't know why you're clapping. The moment that you're able to have multiple outlets that spread misinformation and they're less able to fact check because there are so many, it is the moment that traditional media also loses trust, but also it is the moment that you don't know what to believe because everybody can find an article on anything and claim it is real. But secondly, you lose trust in the media in general. This means you're less likely to read things, you're less likely to report. Why is it important? One, we think the impact on victims on cases that are doxxed and harassed by the public is way, way worse under study position. Innocent civilians that have been harmed by people are outright doxxed, and people are going on their doors and claiming that they are victims or anything. But secondly, we think it is that in general the perception of the world is worse and more polarizing to the point you have less sources you can trust and less people that are able to be there and there for you. I'll take closing.
People who want to harm, promote propaganda, negative ideologies will do so on both sides of the house. What you have in citizen journalists is more information for the actual traditional media in fact.
But they are not considered journalists, so you don't care about them. Okay, going to our second case. Traditional media becomes worse because it has to compete with citizen journalism. Why the name of the source matters less if citizen journalism is as popular as it is? Two reasons. One, because you're constantly bombarded with news sources. Like, a person can have like any name of any traditional media company or a citizen journalist. Most likely it's going to be tweeted, it's going to be your feed. Therefore, you're both going to read citizen journalist stories and normal stories. After a point, the name BBC loses meaning because you have also a bazillion other citizen journalist stories. But secondly, you no longer believe that much in traditional media because you also have many other sources to read from. Therefore, you consider them a bit more trustworthy because maybe they're more there, they're more in the story, because they're a person you can relate to, and therefore you might trust them more. This means that traditional media loses some credibility from the moment that citizen journalism is as big as it is. Why the media has to compete? Two reasons. One, they have to compete with the clicks. There are a finite number of views that exist in social media. Traditional media and investigative journalism and citizen journalism have to compete for them. This means that there is an incentive then to become more sensationalistic, to fact check less, even for traditional media, to the moment you have to be the first in the story, and maybe random Joe is the one that came up with it first. This means that then the BBC, CNN also become worse the moment you have to compete with everyone to get the story. Why then citizen journalism reduce quality of all pieces? We think that you rush, therefore investigative journalism becomes worse. But also, traditional media take maybe some citizen journalist stories as facts, which also make other stories worse. For all of the above reasons, and because we care about traditional media and accountability, vote OG.
Thank you, Andy. And let's move to the first speaker from Public Opposition.
This is not a debate about whether or not citizen journalism is good or bad. We are debating the rise of citizen journalism, meaning that two things. People start relying more on citizen journalism, and second, there is a vast amount of information. This is going to be our case. It was already mentioned by OG, but we believe that the more information there is, it leads to more informed citizens. Now, some friendly rebuttal to what Panagis said. He said that the average person is not the smartest, and meaning that people will not be able to skim through the information presented. But the thing is that we have the rise of citizen journalism exactly because there was a need for this rise. There was a need to change, to have an alternative to traditional media, and we are not saying that traditional media should cease to exist. What we are saying is that citizen journalism is not only meant to complement, but it needs to have a bigger role in how people are informed. And then he talks about how people will want to portray a specific image of themselves. They will try to convince themselves and other people that they are journalists. But he's talking mainly about people sitting from home, getting some information here and there, and doing a blog or a social media post. Citizen journalism is not only that. Citizen journalism occurs when people, in war zones, in natural disasters, where, traditional media is simply not able to go in the first 2 or 3 hours and report these what has happened. And you know, this is exactly what we are saying. We're saying that citizen journalism, they're there, they provide information, and then the traditional media can even get this information and polish however they want. Moreover, he talked about fake news, and this is not exclusive to either side. But our side has one more benefit, and it's we one-up them because citizen journalism occurs in corrupted governments. In places where traditional media is not what it is supposed to be, we have some citizen journalists that can report and can give news to the people. Then they talk about competition, and it's not bad. Competition is good. It's how society is built and how we become better. And even if the panel does not concede to that, there is already competition between the traditional media outlets themselves. Now, moving on to our case. We say that more information and more voices leads to better information. And at the end of the day, this is a debate about which side has the most important, the most informed citizens. We have, for example, the war in Ukraine, where we have the traditional media reporting what they can. We have Ukrainian soldiers, Ukrainian citizens adding more stuff to the news, their unique voices, information that couldn't have been heard other way, but we have one more benefit. We have the Russian soldiers that also report on that, meaning that this citizen journalism might not be able to exist on its own, but on the context of what we have today, meaning that there are traditional media for the people that, you know, they want their news polished. They want reliable people with suits telling them the news. This does not cease to exist on our side, but what we have is an additional source of information to have more informed people. What is exclusive to our side? The amount of information is huge. And the questions that need to be answered is, how can you skim through all this information? We say that the people that are supposed to skim through this information are the people that don't have any other choice. What we give on our side is a choice. You have the traditional media, and if you have only that, or very, very, very limited additional information, you cannot take more. With the rise of citizen journalism, we have a huge amounts of information added to this plethora of information, and they can skim through that if they want. Additionally, we see that citizen journalists can be more organized. We have citizen journalism outlets that might be different from traditional media because they're more original and they use more information. But additionally, they have this organization factor that could have been missing from citizen journalism. And at the end of the day, people are not idiots. And whoever cannot filter through information and needs food, pre-chewed food fed to him, he doesn't deserve to have information. But even if he has to, he has the traditional media. Yes, Claude.
Corrupt governments already control and fact-check and reduce freedom of voice in the internet. This means, in their case, they perceive citizen journalism with impact propaganda.
This is exactly what we're saying concerning how to skim through information. Without the rise of citizen journalism, without those additional sources, we have absolutely no chance of getting any real reporting from this corrupt government. Under your side, it's 100% sure that whatever information we get, it comes from the government. On our side, we're not saying we are certain that we'll have some solid reporting, but at least there is a chance. So, to summarize, what we're saying is very simple. The more information we have, the more voices we have, the more likely it is to get better information. There are some organizational factors, but they can be solved. There are some organizational issues, but they can be solved with more organized citizen journalism. And additionally, the people that are able to skim through this information will be informed. On our side, these people can get as much information as possible, the best news possible. Under your side, we only have traditional media or not citizen journalism in the way we want. Thank you.
Thank you, Alexa, for that speech. And I'd like to move to the first speaker from the second speaker from Open Government.
Sí. Θέλει να βγάλει. Can I start? Okay. 3, 2, 1. In opening government, we think knowledge is power. And we think power comes with great responsibility. We think the moment that you have to decide on who controls the narrative of the society is the moment that you have to be really careful on who you believe and who you actually buy and consume. We're really proud to propose an opening government. I think the reason why I couldn't fix Alexia's table is because for you to do something, you need to have the expertise and the knowledge on how to do it correctly. If you don't have this kind of expertise, the most likely scenario is that the table will fall. This is why people have specific specialization and why these people should actually have a specific contingency on accountability and knowledge to be able to do this stuff. Really proud to propose 3 things in my speech. 1, how we think the counterfactualism was likely to happen. I think Panagis already explained that, but opening government, opening opposition is kind of ignoring that. Second of all, I think I'm going to do some explaining on how this investigative journalism, but also citizen journalism will play out. And I think opening opposition, but also closing opposition is contingent on proving how this looks like, right? But on the third basis, I think I'm going to weigh, and I'm going to explain the following. If we have more quality of journalism, we're going to win versus the quantity of journalism and the bombardment of information they have. And this is going to be the main critical class on opening government. Before that, some things on opening opposition. Opening opposition begins with a huge concession, right? So they say, oh, people have to rely more on citizen journalism. This means that Alekos is proposing to you, you should buy and you should consume stories of your friends in social media. You should buy their posts and you should actually analyze and buy into the way that they see the political sphere. But you should also kind of ignore and detach from BBC and stuff like that. They say it's complementary, but at the same time they concede that you rely more on the things that is more direct to you, but is more proximate to you. The moment that you're scrolling on Facebook or on Instagram, it's more likely that you buy and you click on and you agree even subconsciously. The moment that you see too many posts and too many different opinions is the moment that you're actually buying more to this stuff and you rely less on the objective stuff, on the slow stuff, on the quality stuff that is actually more likely to happen if you have the absence of the citizen journalism that exists in our side of the house. Second of all, they speak about authoritarian states. And I'm sorry, this is crazy case, right? If they want to win this debate based on Middle East and stuff like that, the retaliation part 1, but then 2, the twistment that has in this type of countries is insane. The most likely scenario is gonna be scapegoated. You're gonna be punished. You're gonna be tortured in the middle of the street, or I don't know what. I think citizen journalism has to have the capacity to be able to materialize, to be able to liberate these people. I think opening opposition can prove that in Saudi Arabia, if you have citizen journalism, can be the tipping point to liberation of human rights and all this stuff. This is an insane burden they have to prove on how it is likely if me and Panagis and other 100 to 200 people with an iPhone can actually swift the way that freedom of rights play in this kind of authoritarian states. I think on their side of the house, this is getting significantly worse the moment that you stop relying on actually objective media outlets that actually do this job properly. More on that in my way. Hi. Closing opposition, do you have an extension?
Actually, you're completely ignoring the fact that traditional media continues to exist alongside citizen journalists, and traditional media can fact check and can provide good and accurate information, just have more access to more information.
Okay. Panagis explained like 2 or 3 reasons, right? Why both of them, if coexisting, the one overlaps with the other, the moment that the one is descending over the other. But I'm going to also do that in my constructive to make this clear for closing opposition. Okay, 1. Why citizen journalism is happening in a worse quality journalism inside opposition? 3 reasons. 1. People are more sentimental, right? Because they have a personal story they're reporting. This is something that happened to them, an abuse from a police officer, a thing that they saw in the street. 2. I think they have a lack of expertise. They don't know how to detach from this kind of fact. So the way that they're reporting about this is way more extreme and more sentimental, is way overgeneralized and not even entirely accurate. 3. I think they have a lack of know-how. And this is huge analysis from opening government. It's entirely different to post a fact and a story, and it's entirely different to post a narrative and to explain what is happening. And I'm going to use like a trigger warning example. If you see just George Floyd being choked in the street, it can be enough for you to be alerted. But it's not enough for you to be awoken to be able to be part of the Black Lives Matter. The part of the Black Lives Matter comes when official and traditional media comes with a story, with fact checks, with specific percentages, with specific agenda when it comes to like actually reforming the police and all this stuff. I think in our side of the house, even if we have less of citizen journalism, we still have the video of George Floyd, but we have more of an incitement for the traditional media to do the legwork, for them to do the protesting, for them to do the asking of an opinion and actually like asking for the police to be reformed and to have reduction of money and all this stuff. So what we're saying is the following. The moment that you have some type of facts, in us of the house too, right? Citizens in us of the house too can actually post stuff on Facebook and stuff like that, but they don't do the reporting and they don't take the matter in their own hands. But you let people that have the official knowledge, expertise and capacity to fact check and to build a narrative around the fact is the moment that you have true awareness and true change in the status quo. Why we think in us of the house we have better quality reporting, which is significantly important now, Philip. 1. I think the cross-checking of data can actually give more objectivity and can give a thorough understanding of what is happening. It is a systemic problem when you see police officers being abusing in the street. It's not just a coincidence what is happening on the street. In their side of the house, the moment that you see more and more of this happening in social media and stuff like that, you're becoming detached by this reality because it's like desensitization. The moment that you see all this video again and again, you think this is kind of like regular thing that's happening in the street, and you're less likely to be incited, to be activated about it. You just see the raw facts, but you don't see the narrative behind it. In our side of the house, the moment that you buy more to BBC or Al Jazeera or whoever has the capacity to build a narrative and a story, is the moment that you're being more incited and you understand better the specific systemic issues that exist. It's the moment that you're more likely to be incentivized to go to the street, to actually protest, to actually participate in movements, because you see the actual huge like image of what is happening and not just facts that have been bombarded in a bad and extreme way inside opposition. 3. I think then like the speed that we're losing is something that you can actually catch later on, right? So even if you don't have the George Floyd video on the spot, this video at some point will lead to an official objective media outlet. This video can be weaponized better the moment that you see the first from BBC rather than to a post from a random stranger in Facebook. The gravitas that you have with the moment that you touch first a specific agenda or a specific video is a matter of great significance, because the first contact to this kind of ideology is the one that sticks in your mind and actually lasts with you. At the end of the day, we think the following. 1. We think the expertise and the detachment that is required for you to sell a story is a prerequisite to have both accountability but also quality of information. 2. I think the moment that you need people to be incited and incentivized to participate is the moment that you need someone who has the responsibility and the capacity to do it. Very proud to be opening government.
Thank you, George, for that speech. Let's move to the second of opening the position.
think for this debate to work, we need to realize where does citizen journalism actually rises, right? We're not talking about situations or countries where media is actually working properly. Citizen journalism actually rises when the government doesn't give you the space for your story to be heard. Citizen journalism rises when there is a need for it. That's what Alekos brought to you, right? We think we want the rise of citizen journalism because we give a voice to those who don't have one, and we're allowing people to be informed about a situation that otherwise they wouldn't be informed with. And third of all, I think we broaden the proximity of what average citizen cares about, right? Because we believe that without the rise, you wouldn't care about what happens outside of your country. Now, before I explain you all of this, some rebuilding to our case, right? So, to the relying more on media, they took it to the worst extent possible. They took it to, citizen journalism will suddenly become your Bible. No, to us, what relying more looks like is for actually citizen journalism to be an actual place for your voice to be heard. For sites of citizen journalism getting a rise and getting the respect, no thank you, they deserve, and for articles to be made, for you to be able to, your voice to be heard over a very corrupted government. That's what, for us, relying more looks like. It looks like that people actually have a hope that, if I post something, it would actually broaden the horizon, it will actually get more powerful, it will blow up, and my voice will empathize with others. Those who are not victims will start actually protesting for me that I'm not able to do so. Second of all, we heard that corrupted governments can punish you, can ban you, can delete you, blah, blah, blah. Yes, true. But they can punish only the ones that are in their country. We find it physically impossible for you guys to prove to us that if we have 600,000 posts made, right, that the corrupted government, who whilst also is trying to corrupt, their own media, their own, right, they're still trying to manipulate their people, right, they're still trying to manipulate every single social media in their country, now have the time and space to find every single post and repost and ban it, right? We don't think they have the time, and it's very difficult for you to prove that burden. And if they do so, that's why we need more of citizen journalism, because the more this is on rise, the more other countries are getting involved in things that can actually affect them. No. So, rebuttal. So what we heard by Fergadakis, we heard that the bad quality of citizen journalism. I heard three things on this. One is way too sentimental. Here's a response to that. Yes, we have two types of people who are being part of citizen journalism. One, that are very sentimental, and two, who actually want to make a career out of it. Before the rise, there was still citizen journalism, right? There are sites like The Economist and other places where me, as a certain average Bob, right, I can go write an article. If I have the right qualification, they will post my article. We have these types of journalists. They still exist under the rise, and they're the ones who actually go and fact check the sentimental no thank you, the sentimental you guys have such a huge problem with. I think both of them help each other out. You have the good journalists who are not willing to risk their future career, who are not willing to risk their name, and therefore they're publishing good articles, and then you have the sentimental ones who are more, no thank you, more crucial to us because they're the ones who bring detail. We think sentimental comes when you actually live there. When you hear a story of someone losing their child and they're posting it in the moment, they're posting on Instagram. That's when we win. We win on the sentimental. When we have the rise, that's what we gain. We gain sentimental journalists. The good, proper ones, which still exist on your side, we have them under the rise. Before I move on, go.
You do realize that The Economist has a subscription of 300 euros per year.
Exactly, right? You need citizen journalism. The Economy is the part where, if without the rise, the sites that allow me to have a voice, the sites that allow me are that expensive, right? Who is going to pay that? That's a valid argument. That's why you need social media. That's why you need for people to care about citizen journalism. We can have both. And also, they stated that they're not talking about the smart professional one who is willing to buy out The Economist, right? We're talking about the average person. The average person, exactly because he's not willing to pay, he needs to have citizen journalism. He needs to see these stories and these photos that otherwise the government wouldn't allow him to, because they haven't brought us a way as to how me, an average person, will get informed about something that's happening outside of the No. Right. He also brought to you how you let people do their job. They can still do their job under the rise. We don't really get that point. We don't think that quality law goes that low because we think it's already really, really low. We think the government, no thank you, has already corrupted their media by creating fake scenarios, by adding influencers to do something crazy, to distract you. We think that governments have been corrupted. They can corrupt the media, and we think that this point doesn't stand. Lastly, he talked about desensitization, and you see something every day. We concede to that. And we say, enough is enough. Right? You should be desensitized. You should be bored of seeing dead bodies on the street because you haven't seen them before. We believe that we're willing to take this flaw of you know what? You see this every day and the same thing over and over again because we finally need it, right? And also to reply to the POI and get to my case about the media control, I responded to before. If you can bring a mechanism that all citizen journalism will somehow be controlled, please do so. Right? No, thank you. So here's what we bring to the table. Alex told you about the choice for you to be able to hear the story of someone that lived through this, the emotion of citizen journalists. That's what we bring you to the table. We want people to have two sides. Why is that? Two types of people in this debate. One who lives in a corrupted government and one who is in the occupation of that sense corrupted government. Let's look at the first person, right? He only sees mainstream media. He has, without the rise, he doesn't see the importance, no thank you, of hearing someone else's voice. He opens his phone and he only sees what his government wants to see. With the rise, most likely he will see 2 or 3 articles that will lead him into saying what is happening to my government. No, thank you. We think that this person, even if one person under this type of government is being well informed, we win. Second of all, we have people who are under occupation, right? And those people most likely have no Wi-Fi and no way for them to actually say what's happening to them. The only way they can do so is take videos, give it to someone, risk their life essentially, and hope it blows up. Without the rise of citizen journalism, we don't have that. There is no chance for them to actually blow up. Because what does the rise bring exclusively? What does the world with the rise is exclusively? The trendiness of it. The fact that it's cool for you to be a citizen journalist. Yes, we concede to the fact that you might bring more misinformation, but that's not exclusive to citizen journalists because most likely the governments are already misinforming people. So we're willing to take, you win some, you lose some, because we believe that in the sea of, let's say, misinformation, which don't even believe it, but let's say in the sea of misinformation, you will be able, if you care enough, to find the important articles, to find the important information. We think that videos and photos are really hard to misinform. We think if I take a photo of what's happening in a war zone, it's really hard for it to be misinformation. And even if it is, I think that if 10 people repost on one photo, you will realize that that's what's happening. The world with the rise is a world where people are being more informed. The world with the rise is a world where I now actually start to care about what's happening in Georgia, where they're trying to pass a law that they're not allowed to be European citizens anymore. This doesn't matter to me. This doesn't affect me. Yet I still read articles about it because of the rise, because people have made me care about it. This is exclusive to the rise of citizen journalism. And if they want to bring in misinformation, go ahead, because they cannot prove to you that governments are not just as corrupted in those types of cities. Thank you.
The counterfactual in this debate is that we do have testimonies by people. We do have people using their phones and sharing content online. We also have people sharing their personal opinion online. We have commentary on current events. We have active citizens. We have people speaking online because online discourse is part of our daily lives now. The difference in the counterfactual is that none of this is regarded as a piece of journalism. None of this gets a legitimacy of an actual article or an actual video created by a team of journalists and backed by a media organization that actually ensures that this is something valuable for society. This is actually not journalism. This is the difference, the crucial difference you need to keep. Secondly, notice how the diversity of news and opinions isn't the same as quantity or quality of information. Traditional media can cover the full spectrum of ideologies, can cover both sides of the conflict, can cover all the diverse opinions, all the different opinions, without us needing to have a quantity of information in every single part of the spectrum, but also without us needing to have all of the quantity that they are proposing, because the quality of that information is also very important. Me consuming very high quality information about the one side of the conflict and very bad quality and low quality of the other side of the conflict is even more problematic than lacking one of the two. Notice that in countries where you have censorship, you're likely to have censorship both in traditional media and journalism. And notice how when Alexia tells you that if you have a vast quantity of that, then you can really control everything. Notice two things. Firstly, with the rise of AI and technology and everything, you can ban 1,000 millions of things with the same click, right? Because you can just identify the words that you don't want to be seen. But secondly, notice that if something and some story is not visible enough, it doesn't get enough attention, then it's not harmful to a government because simply no one sees it. If the government doesn't see it, then it's likely that people don't either. But let's look how we are actually going to compare to our opening, right? Because I'm going to do two things in my case, right? I'm going to explain to you why the way in which citizen news are disseminated is inherently problematic and how this crowds out traditional quality media. This is different from Panagis saying that traditional media gets worse. I'm actually going to prove you that it doesn't matter what happens, it actually it loses the prominence. But secondly, I'm actually going to impact how society changes through having or not having citizen journalism. Before I do that, very quick rebuttal on what we've heard from OWO. Notice how in the beginning of the debate, they set the metric for themselves, and we agree that this is about having informed citizens, this is about having an informed public. Therefore, they can't just hide behind the fact that they don't care, and Aleka says that if someone is an idiot, basically, and they are capable of checking the piece of information, then they are not worthy of that information. Notice how they can't do that from the point that they care about an informed society, because those idiots are the ones that are voting in society. But secondly, notice how the average person that they're claiming, and they want to, and this is like the important stakeholder in this debate, they say they want them to have access to citizen journalism, they want them to have access to this kind of news that is not being held accountable. In my POI, when I tell them that The Economist, which is a well-accepted piece of good journalism, right, has a subscription of almost 300 euros per year, they just say that this is why we need to have citizen journalism. We think that this is inherently problematic. This is what is going to be my case, because it's very problematic when we allow, when traditional good media exists, but is inaccessible from the public, and we can't really use that. It's bad for them to say that we want the average person to have worse quality information, while the good quality exists and is not accessible. At the end of the day, the oversimplification of things on social media is very harmful. But let's look at my extension. I'll take the POI later. The way in which citizen news are disseminated is problematic and therefore crowds out quality media. Let's look at why, even taking opposition at their best, being absolutely targeted, where we have good intentions from citizen journalists, they actually want to promote the truth, right? They fail in doing so. And this happens because they have no money, they don't have an official channel, they disseminate their news through social media, which has a huge quantity of information, and this is not a positive thing. Two mechanisms here. Firstly, this piece of information is likely not going to be able to be distinct, right? This looks very similar to a random influencer just sharing their opinion and posing some sort of fake evidence or non-fake evidence or one-sided evidence, right? And secondly, this is among a huge amount of information that is inherently problematic from the point that it misleads very easily a person that scrolls their feed for like 30 minutes per day, right? But secondly, the inherent domination of short text or short videos on social media is very problematic because it shortens the attention span of people. It makes it a lot harder for them, even if they had a free subscription to The Economist, to actually never ever use it because it's just easier to watch Instagram Reels and feel like they have been informed, right? This is about, at the end of the day, people becoming more complacent with worse pieces of information. But let's look at why this is important, right? Because this is about the quality of media dropping as a whole, right? Because even if the open opposition tells you that like traditional media are going to follow and are going to lose the quality, we think that it doesn't even matter if they're going to keep the quality, right? Because this quality is not going to be visible. Because at the end of the day, when it comes to journalism, what we see and what we see first really, really matters. if these things exist, are going to continue to be behind paywalls because no one is going to come forward and fund more like news agencies and news organizations in order to provide good quality things at a lower price of being accessible, right? Because at the end of the day, we think that we have information. But let's look at why this information at the end of the day is very important and why we bring the unique impact, right? Because we think information affects, one, public opinion, it affects how people vote, it affects how society reacts to things, but secondly, it affects actions taken by people that have power. We mean politicians, we mean elected officials, we mean even public figures or activist groups, right? This actively forms how we interact with society, it forms how we interact with the powerful figures of our society. Us having misleading information leads to also people in power reacting to the information that the public has, no matter if this is quality or not. It leads to worse decision making, it leads to people actually following this wrong trend of worse quality media. This is exactly why you don't want to live in this world. We would much rather live in the counterfactual where citizen journalism was not on the rise. For all of the above, Siji.
Thank you, Sabra, for that speech. Let's move to the first speaker from the
Θα φας ξύλο. Okay. Okay. May I begin?
Where's the microphone?
Yeah. Okay. Ah. Okay. Okay. 1, 2, 3. The misunderstanding of how citizen journalism actually works runs through the whole proposition. Yes, we have many forms of citizen journalism. We have commentary citizen journalism. We have collaborative. This is another term of the citizen journalism. We have collaborative sites that they actually have editors that know more. And also, mainstream media, many times, they have access to more information through these citizens because, for example, if you're an investigative journalist, you say, can you retweet, were you in this protest? And many people actually go and share this, and only with the rise we have so many shares because it's more common. Let's do some rebuttal on CG and go to our two claims. Okay. CG says to us that basically in their side of the house they still have testimonials and all these things. Not at this extent. And this is important because in cases that we need to actually dismantle the authority that the mainstream media, or for example, we have to prove that a policeman was brutal, you need more information, you need more witnesses because you actually want to go this case to the jury. So you need more detail. And when you have the rise, you have the person that, more people that will take their phone and actually make a picture or a video, and you have more people actually engaging in the investigative journalists that will go through the case. And also, they say to us that basically we have people in action being misled. I don't think that people in power are basic person we need to address because these people actually have teams that can go through the decision making. Okay, and also about the quality and it's not visible. I tell you that yes, maybe in your mainstream feed of the average person that it's not so sophisticated and woke, you don't have the best quality visible, but you have investigative reports that dig deeper because of citizen journalism, and you will not have in the first place these reports without the rise. Okay, which is our case and why we differentiate from the above. News outlets are pressured, no matter in the regime you need, in democratic countries, are pressured to be more accountable and reliable because they are facing backlash through the competition, exactly clashing with OG. Why do people, first of all, still care about traditional news outlets? First of all, the prestige that they have and the historical merit they have, and they still have some authority in the eyes of the people. Later, one minute. You have basically more visibility, more interaction, and you have more material to actually offer that. And just to say something, BBC, because of the rise of citizen journalists, now they have the biggest fact-checking team in the world. They have it exactly because they need all this information, and because they cannot access all these videos without the rise of citizen journalists, and they want to utilize it. So what they did, they hired more fact-checking journalists. This is something that you can do, and also Economist New Yorker also did. Why citizen journalists put pressure on news outlets? I will go to a story about Timson in the protests of G20 in London. This person actually was killed while going home from the protests. The only reason why this case went to the jury was because the main authorities didn't even report how this person died. They said that they portrayed him as a protester, and there was no other, from the main news, no other storytelling. When this was where the rise of citizen journalism occurred more at this time, what happened? More people actually uploaded videos from there, and they said, wait, this is not how this happened. And you know, because of this extent of content uploaded, actually, an investigative journalist went like, oh my God, this may not be the story, because you have this narrative of objectivity of the main news outlets. But because of the extent, some investigative journalists went deeper. They said, were you a witness in this protest? Yes. And they had 20 witnesses in 6 days. They had rapidly. So what they did was actually, because of the rise of citizen journalism and because of the proximity they had to the event from all the angles, they even see where the policemen pushed them, they actually this proximity puts more pressure. Also, the huge amount of material makes it to the news, and also with fact-checking and data journalists, we cover the problem about the fake news. We don't say that they won't be fake news, they will be fake news, but we have mechanisms to cover this. I will accept in 1 minute. Not 1 minute. Okay, and also you have clashing opinions. You have someone to challenge the main authorities. You have someone that if the police, because in this case I told you, the policeman went to the news outlet and said, put this down. In this case, the spread of the information was so huge that it was irreversible for an authority that has so much power in their hands to do something to hid the truth. I will accept the POI.
Okay. The accountability of the government from investigative citizen journalism is insane. The majority of citizen journalism is decentralized, uncontrolled, and overshadowing the minority of the best case scenario you're describing. BBC has an incentive to be accurate in both sides of the house.
Okay, I will say about all these big outlets, I will say that there are medium outlets that actually need to be empowered. And because they don't have the resources and the capacity of BBC, they have the citizen journalists that actually they can give them something to report on, and they are not in small business, they don't have so much lobbying, so we believe that they will try to actually portray people and do fact-checking also. Also, there is a backlash, so you have more accountable governments. There is a backlash if you don't report. It doesn't matter in which regime you are in. Governments, actually, media outlets, actually are pushed even before letting out content to be more accountable, because they know the backlash because of the huge amount of content that there will be. And also lobbying and all these things that in big news outlets there are in many countries, it's more transparent because they know if they are too radical that the citizen journalists will expose them more easily. And this happens only with the rise of citizen journalism. It doesn't happen just having citizen journalists around. For all these reasons, Theo.
Thank Thank you, Prada, for that speech. Let's move to the last member of the government.
Okay? In 3, 2, 1. Beginning the speech, I would like to do two things. One, explain who investigative journalists are, and the second, where citizen journalism happens. Because OO cannot be pushing you into this happens in Ukraine, and at the same time pushing that they don't get punishment because they're far away from Ukraine. If you're far away from Ukraine, you cannot do anything in Ukraine, so therefore you don't have any immediacy, therefore OO's holding back does fall. Secondly, who are citizen journalists? We do believe that there are people without training, without the knowledge to understand what principles, what accountability says, as we said, and we also believe one second thing, that being a citizen journalist in and of itself does not mean that such that the other forms of journalism do get worse. We do believe that there are high chances or that they haven't proven the likelihood in how main journalism does not get worse. We do work in both scenarios, even if journalism gets worse, even if it doesn't get worse. And also, let me say something about CO's whole argument. The main thing that they forget, and also is the difference between evidence and information, news, and material. Evidence is not news, is not material. This is the reason we do not believe that Snowden, when everything happened, he wasn't believed as citizen journalist because she pushed out things, because she did it through BBC or other media. What's the tipping point? The tipping point is that whoever fronts the evidence after processing them and after fact-checking them and after making sure they're ready for the world to hear is whoever does the journalism. This means using videos from war countries, using videos of things being done does not make citizen journalism. Talking about how they work, explaining what you see and making you push into an agenda that you believe is the tipping point in what journalism becomes. Why do you believe that many journalists being responsible for showing evidence is better? For three main reasons. One, it's highly more likely that BBC can show the world what happens in Ukraine. A random blog, a random Instagram post in Ukraine cannot be seen by EU. This means EU cannot see what's happening inside, cannot push agendas to help Ukraine. This means citizen journalism is more dependent on the world where this happens. They live on risks. Second, there's less possibility of abuse because BBC uses watermarks, because BBC has the lowest defined legislation of whoever tries to steal their ideas. This means you don't get abuse from videos being shown from main media. And three, credibility. We do believe that BBC is more likely to have fact-checked what they're doing instead of other places. This means a single photo where it will be misrepresented by opposition does not get misrepresented by us. Now that I've done the main difference, showing the missing link that CEO hasn't got, let me tell you what they say. They say one main argument, how this leads to more reports, therefore more share into the world. And they try to say that the quality doesn't maybe decrease, but the quantity is so much more at the scale does stand. We do believe this is not true, because the only mechanism is login. This does not stand, because there are two things. Having the reach to be quantitative more and thus have any impact requires two things. Requires either one, reputation, which BBC has very citizen journalism will not have, and two, they require the incentive to work and push for their agenda. We don't believe social movements work because of citizen journalism. We do believe they work because people try to do it. I believe you have mostly here run or organized a debate online, a debate competition. You do understand how much work goes into that. You wouldn't be able to use both your life and then do anything into pushing that much meaning in society. We do believe in basically journalism, citizen journalism, it's more like 5 smart facts about today's world, 5 small things that you may see in media. It's not about solving any big. The big stuff does that, but whether you do believe, and you do believe the economists more than you do anything else.
Okay, most mainstream media are willing to take the side of the country that their country is having more intercourse with.
Okay, let's go to this part. OO says three main things. One, they do say the abstain thing that average voter does fact checks. believing that we are likely to not vote because you are an average intelligent voter. This conflicts with caring that much about news into fact checking. If you don't go to vote, you most likely don't care about the news you're getting. And even if it's true, it already does happen mainly in main world. It happens in our case. If you do fact check anything, this means you don't need citizen journalists in order to do the fact checking. This means they don't prove this point. And also to the rest, two main ideas. One about informed citizens. We already understood why proximity does not work, because you can have both proximity and immediacy and don't get killed at all. And secondly, even if this happens, we lose access to quality media. And why is it important? Because one, access to media is important. I do believe I could get better at myself and understand the world if I have anything that I do believe is factually correct. If economists raises its price for them to be considered the elite and for them to be able to afford because they don't have a mass audience, this means the average Joe that doesn't have the money to go into economics. We do believe people not being able to listen to main media outlets is bad, is worse, in their house, in our house, it's better. And also, they do believe we do prefer more quality because it brings more food for thought. Why? Because one, the medium changes. Long essays are more easily to digest and understand and think rather than short TikToks. And also because it's international. We do believe international affairs are more important than what happens from Athena to Katerini to Larissa, which is what citizen journalism is about. Now let's go on to CG, and so while we're over there, I have gotten two ideas. One, how less deontology leads to investigative journalism getting worse. And secondly, why main media quality decreases. Please note that the impacts are dependent on both these things happening. If they do not show, or if OO has rebutted, or CO, hopefully Philippos, has rebutted this part, this means that impacts fall. We do one, bring new facts on why the citizen journalism is misleading, because short videos, because you said too much amount of trust, because you are certain upon too much amount of trust. It's like finding a needle in a haystack, whereas main journalists are more easy to understand, which is important. And we both brought new impact. We brought public opinion, as in elections, as in not being able to change them through opposition side, and we brought reaction from people with power. People with power do not tend to care about citizen journalism. People with power do not tend to care about trying to change what they say when they are trying to push without any amount of human capital they have proven they need to push. And we've also talk about opposition, even if the world did work with the same amount of quality in investigative journalism. We do bring this extra, even if analysis that OG has forgotten to bring. This means even if the rest of the debate is and was, this purpose is only brought from government, from CG, does win the debate. So we got one, go with OO's and CO's best case scenario. Two, go more impact and more analysis on OG's case. And three, rebut CO, you vote CG.
Hello? Okay. Sorry, 3, 2, 1. It's funny how Jim's last words in this debate were that they beat us because they win in our best case scenario, where this is the exact opposite of what the entire opposition bench has done in this entire debate. Right? Both OG and CG, in order for their cases to work, we have to assume that traditional media is the best. They never get things wrong, or they very rarely do, and that citizen journalist is short-form content exclusively, bad news outlets exclusively, bad actors that want to promote propaganda exclusively. Right? This is necessary for a lot of their material to actually work in this debate. What we are going to do, and the reason why we win this debate, is because we actually win in their best case scenario, right? Which is we grant them that traditional media is probably better than citizen journalism in a lot of things, and especially fact-checking information and making sure it's more accurate, right? We also grant them that a lot of citizen journalists may not have the best possible content out there. We still win this debate because of Maro's analysis on exactly why having citizen journalists promoting more information into the playing field serves to put pressure on traditional media to become better, serves to increase accountability. Notice how no side of this debate is engaged with this, which means that our analysis is still standing. At least it's engaged significantly. Jim, I'm going not to take it now. Right, so let's take a closer look, basically, at what Maro has said to us in this debate. Right? Maro is the only speaker who has done two things. First of all, frame this debate on exactly how citizen journalism interacts with traditional media, right? This has been largely neglected, especially by the opening teams. And the thing is, citizen journalists interact with media because we're talking about a world where citizen journalism is on the rise, and this constantly coexists with traditional media still wanting to do its job and professional journalists still making a living in the setting, right? And because traditional media is not perfect, this pressure created by citizen journalists, a pressure that Maro explains how it's created, by basically having competition for resources, needing to be the first media outlet to actually break those news, all this competition, all this pressure in a world where more and more information is circulating is necessary. Because no one is perfect. Everyone gets better by competition. Everyone becomes consistently better. And pressure on traditional media is necessary because they are no longer the sole unchallenged authority that has control over a very important thing, which is how citizens get information, especially in a democracy, right? It's really important to have this mechanism of transparency. We do believe that it is the role of the media to actually provide a transparent outlet into what the government and those people in authority are doing. And we believe that having citizen journalists allows the traditional media to become better at this and have more ways to actually do this effectively, right? But the second thing that Maro does is she explains why this interaction on our side of the house shifts the narratives to actually create more trust and a more transparent and accountable media. We actually explain how citizen journalism ensures that the media big media outlets do not rest on the laurels. Why? A lot of mechanisms provided by Maro. I need to mention a few. Backlash is one of them, right? When I see that the media is reporting a protest that was brutally suppressed by the police as the police retaliating against a few violent offenders, but I see videos by citizen journalists actually saying that the police were the first to attack, or that they were the ones to break into the student protest or whatever, this angers me, and this makes me create a lot of backlash against the media outlets that are falsely reporting news to promote a particular agenda. And this is very important because this is what actually gets traditional media outlets to try and become more objective, try to see both sides of this and become an island, I would say, of transparency and accurate information. No, not now. So, two impacts that Maro explained: more accurate and reliable media, which reduces the impact of misinformation. You can see that misinformation exists. We think that misinformation now exists on both sides of the house, right? Fox News promoting Trump's agenda is a traditional media outlet. This would still exist even with or without citizen journalists. When you have citizen journalists going out on the field and trying to show how things actually and accurately are, this significantly increases a lot of increases transparency and enables people to hold institutions accountable when they fail at their jobs. And second thing, better access to information, which makes the government more transparent and more reliable, again, because this is what a lot of information does.
At best, your case is mitigation, because you provide more fact-checking for more bad information. You destroy the budget of BBC, less good articles come out.
Okay, no, this is not mitigate our case. This is actually the most important thing in this debate, right? And I'm going to wait with OG because they talk about how we make traditional media less reliable. I'm actually going to say because by your own analysis, actually, Panaghi, accountability is the most important thing in this debate. This was stated by OG. So them trying to backstab themselves on this point, that makes no sense, right? They did this, right? So they lose this debate exactly because they framed it on accountability of the media. They try to prove that media becomes less accountable because citizen journalists push it to become fast-paced. But they neglected the fact that this pressure actually is what makes media become better. We explained in Maro's constructive analysis. I also explained again in my case with even more mechanisms, and not to do this again. We have proven to you that pressure is what makes media outlets more reliable. Because citizens want them to be reliable because they can now actually see when they are not reliable and they can hold them accountable. They can unsubscribe from The Economist, Sandra, and they can actually make sure that they follow outlets that they think are what is most reliable to them. So, because we've made this debate about accountability, we win because we are the only team to show that media outlets are more accountable. Right? But let's also weigh ourselves with the other teams in this debate. Because we have explained to you why traditional media outlets matter, especially both in the world of citizen journalists and in a world without this crisis of citizen journalists. Having this explanation ensures that no matter what the other teams bring in this debate about potential misinformation, about all those things, because no team has challenged the fact that traditional media matters, we think that this continues to stand. And this is really important because it makes accountability of those media that people trust for authority reasons, for prestige reasons, for all the things that we brought in our speech. This makes it the most important impact of this debate. So CG's analysis, a lot of the material that they brought, that, citizen journalists cannot really promote info, or that there is not as much interaction, which a lot of this material is assumed, does not probably stand, right? And accessibility, we don't have to prove that every traditional media is paywall free. Some exist. The Guardian is not paywall. It does not have a paywall. It's a very good source of information. So we beat CG because at the best case, we have some paywalls for some accountable media, and a lot of citizen content being unreliable. But we have some citizen content that is reliable. We have media outlets that can help and ensure that a lot of the content that gets out there is reliable. We have proven that people care about this content, even when citizen journalism exists. So we win the debate because we have more accurate information being disseminated, exclusive analysis from closing opposition. And finally, why we win over OO, because we have heard this debate a lot about authoritarian states, right? But we think when we're talking about the media, it's more important to talk about democratic states, which is what we do on closing opposition, because this is where media and information can flow more freely. Because we win on democratic states, because we win on proposition benches, best case scenario, we win this debate. Very proud to propose.